Hey, what's going on, y'all? I'm your host, CP. I definitely appreciate y'all for dropping in. Today I'm going to be talking about this is season 2, episode 3, Deja Vu. Now, in this review, I'm going to change things up a little bit. I'm not going to do it the same way I've been doing these previous reviews, so definitely stick around and check it out.
But behind closed doors, I'm a fool for your love.
So, just to put it out there, this is a spoiler video. I mean, it is a review, so don't say I didn't warn you. Now, with that being said, in this episode, there are actually 3 main topics that are talked about. You got Deja, who is this new adopted child of Randall and Beth. You got Kevin still trying to deal with the loss of his dad, and Jack, who is still dealing with this whole alcoholism thing. So with Deja, in the current timeline, Big Randall's all excited about adopting a kid. They get a phone call that all their paperwork has been pushed through, and they've already got a foster child already picked up and is going to be stopping by later that day. Later that evening, the foster child arrives, looks to be a young female, maybe 13, 14 years old, ends up being Deja. She comes into the house very quiet to herself, almost kind of out of shock in her own world that, she's going through this process again of going through another foster family. It looks to be, from her background, her mom maybe has been in and out of jail, possibly having to do something with drugs. And I guess after a while, she comes to pick her up and the process continually repeats. So, Deja being in this new big house that she's, of course, not used to, having a tough time getting used to this new foster family. So they get her settled into her own room. Beth ends up finding a pack of cigarettes in her belongings, and they end up arguing. Deja's like, what are you doing going through my stuff? And she ends up dropping a B word on Beth. They start arguing. Randall comes in like, what's going on? And immediately Deja backs off. So you start to see kind of like the psychological effect that it has on her. She comes from a background, of course, of a broken home. Mom's, seems like an addict in and out of jail. And from the reaction from Randall, looks like she's being abused or she was abused by her dad. So after Randall sees that effect, they all kind of take a break, trying to get a chance to cool off. And the next day, things cool down. Randall and Beth get a letter from the social worker that looks like Deja's mom is going to be going to prison. So they need to break this to Deja. They end up sitting her down in their living room, and Randall's like, you know what, when I was younger, I was also adopted. A lot of the times I was trying to look for my biological parents. And the very first thing I thought of when I saw you was deja vu, because you remind me of so much of myself when I was younger. And I turned out great, and I think the same thing's going to happen to you as well. And then he just drops the bomb on her like, yeah, your mom's probably going to go to prison. She's probably not going to be able to pick you up this time. And Deja snaps, she throws this picture down, crashes it, and Beth gets up like, be a super mom over here. But, Randall's like, oh, chill, relax, don't worry about it, don't even trip. I really like how they perceive the perspective of Deja. Now, when she comes into this house, it looks like she's kind of just in her own world. She's to herself, not really talking to anybody. Looks like she's maybe in a state of shock where it's like she can't really believe she's in this situation again, having to be with a different foster family. You can also begin to see that this is going to be a really dynamic issue that's going to come up for the family. Usually, if something happens, if there's an issue that, Randall may have, he's usually just a hard worker and he'll just keep knocking at it until, he can just solve it. But with this, it's something that no level of just hard work will just make it turn out just like that, just to solve it just like that. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this develops and how the family is going to be able to deal with this whole situation. They're going to have to tackle it from a different point of view, from a different perspective. I really love how they did the character of Beth. They really captured the essence of a black woman in Beth, and I absolutely love it. Even at the very end where she's about to go right upside Deja's head for breaking that picture. You really see that too often in TV shows, but they got her spot on. I really like that. That was I salute my hat to them for doing that one. That was dope. That was dope. Then you got Kevin, who still has not dealt with the loss of his dad. Him and Kate are actually on set because Kevin has a movie to do with Sylvester Stallone. Now, Sylvester Stallone was Jack's absolutely favorite actor. And so this has a big effect on Kate and Kevin. Kate ends up being introduced to Sylvester Stallone and, was really telling him that you are her dad's biggest fan. Later, she goes off and finds him, talks to him one-on-one, and was saying, I just want to say thank you because you know what, my dad was your biggest fan. Anytime that he was sick, whether he had a bad day at work or anything, you just made it all go away. So I really just wanted to thank you for that. Sylvester's like, oh, you know, it's no problem. Go ahead, come on, bring him in. I'm sure he'll be happy. And Kate breaks it to him like, oh, he had died when they were younger. And he was like, oh, you know, I'm really sorry to hear that. Sylvester ends up bringing this up to Kevin, and this absolutely throws Kevin all the way off. He doesn't like know how to function. He not able to act, can't remember his lines, and he ends up turning around and being a douchebag to Kate because, you know, Kate was the one who told Sylvester about their dad. And so you got Kevin who's pushing blame off on Kate because he can't deal with his own problems. Turn into a complete douchebag. Even though they end up kind of making up, they go back to scene. So anytime Kevin thinks of Sylvester Stallone, he automatically thinks of his dad, and he's not able to remember his lines, not able to do anything as far as acting, ends up hurting his knee in the process. You can see that with Kevin, you know, he's anytime they talk about Jack, he's always quick to dodge the conversation. And, you know, even in this episode, it comes out to the point where he turns into a complete douchebag towards Kate, you know, saying some pretty unnecessary things. And, you know, Kate kind of being that more timid personality is just like, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. You know, of course, I think it'll get to a point where Kevin's going to be able to get over this. It seems like that's usually the direction and how the show goes when there's an issue that comes up. Of course, it's going to get solved at some point. So we can definitely look forward to seeing that soon. How it's going to happen, I'm not sure. I think maybe this connection with Sylvester Stallone in this movie is going to be able to help him get over the loss of his dad. Then you got Jack, who's still dealing with being an alcoholic. So he's going to these AA meetings, and in one of these meetings, he lets them know that, you know, I told my wife that I was going to try talking to her this time around, and it seems to just be getting harder and harder to just talk to her. Rebecca, in the meanwhile, is sitting down at a restaurant with Miguel's ex-wife, and apparently she knows a lot of the personal information about the fight that they're going through, you know, asks if they're having sex, and Rebecca's like, no, so she's like, you know what, you should try to take him out, you know, wear a nice dress, do things that he would do to you. So that's exactly what Rebecca does. You know, she puts this nice dress on, goes to pick up Jack to have a nice night. And so they're in this car, and Rebecca starts to get seductive, trying to get in them draws, and Jack's like, oh, you know what, let's hold on a second here. Then he begins to tell her that, you know, it's really been really hard for me to talk to you, you know, because in these AA meetings, they sit there and they tell us that, you know, we have to be in this position no matter how bad we feel about it, as opposed to having to just avoid it and not deal with it. And Rebecca's being, you know, very supportive, and you start to see Jack continue to open up to her. One of the things he says is that he had to borrow money from his dad in order to buy the house. And, you know, her still continuing to be supportive reminds Jack that, you know what, he really misses talking to her. And you can start to see the rekindling between them two. Then you got Miguel's ex-wife, who knows like all this personal information about Jack and Rebecca. Like, she know about the fight that they had. She know that they not having sex. I'm like, yo, what the heck? Like, what else do you know? You know they credit card number, they bank statements, they credit score. Dang, chill, relax. I thought that was real OD that she knew that much information. But, you know, I know in real life that'll definitely cause issues. In here, it's probably not because it's just a TV show. But I thought that was OD. She did not need to know all that information. And then you got this whole thing when Jack actually just slides in, but he says that he actually took money from his dad to buy the house. And so you always got this constant ticking time bomb in the back of your head, like, what the heck happened? This actually introduced another summary, like, you know what? Like, did he like relapse one time? Did he get drunk? Thought about that, then burn the house down in the process because he was mad and then died? Like, what happened? We're waiting for this to show up, like, what in the world happened to Jack? How did he die? But I'm interested to know, what do you all think about this show? How'd y'all like it? I think overall, I'll probably rate it, I give it a 9 out of 10. It was a really good show. As always, definitely, I'm sure many of you needed a box of tissues or some napkins to wipe them tears, but I think I'll definitely be looking forward to how this will further develop, especially with Randall now having Deja as an adopted child. Definitely going to be looking forward to how that will develop. But what do y'all think? Comment down below. Let's talk about it. I'm going to hang down in the comments for a little bit, so let's go ahead and chop it up. If y'all like this video, definitely like and subscribe to help me navigate the direction of this channel. I definitely appreciate y'all for watching. This is Commentary with CP, and I'll check you all in the next one. Peace.